late night surprise quick pop-up stream. We have the pop-up tournaments. How about a pop-up stream? Little bit of unfinished business that I wanted to go through today on this Boxing Day up here in Canada. And a special guest we have in is just going to be a very short stream, maybe a half an hour. So not going to be here for a long time, but want to cover some things that went on over the last couple of days. First of all, the bounty tournament today that we had on my stream a little bit earlier. You know, someone that didn't quite get the trophy he wanted, but he still got a trophy, a consolation prize. Congratulations to Warbot for winning the bounty tournament today, taking it all the way to the end and winning in 2 games, having to come from the backside of the tournament, but ended up winning 2-0. And also congratulations to Wisconsin Winter for taking the bounty part of the tournament, for defeating me. I was almost there to the semifinals, but the Winter took me out and I couldn't recover from that. And what I found really interesting, this was a tournament where you could only draft starting pitchers and catchers. That was it. Had to say that on the front of the card. And there were some really good teams out there like Boise. I thought Boise was going to win it all because look at this team. Every single player of their 9-man starting rotation roster is a catcher. All of these guys, their primary position is catcher. And Boise, don't throw my win, was able to take advantage of this and get players that were in the card pool that met all those positions, including shortstop Jack Rowe, which is hard to find a catcher that's a shortstop. A starter, he did have one starter. Curly Foley was a pitcher that he had that was eligible for center field. But yeah, Posada, Bench, Grady, Steinbeck, Simmons, they didn't win the tournament. They were my favorite to win it. They did get knocked out a little bit earlier. Oh, it wasn't the Winter that defeated me. It was Boise that defeated me on the back end of the tournament. But the Winter did make the final. Fizé against Charles, and Charles was able to take it. So congratulations. Those packs have been sent out already to the 2 winners. So that went on today. But that's not my main focus today. My main focus this evening is to bring on a guy that is probably still popping the champagne, probably still celebrating a little bit, maybe a little bit tipsy. I don't know. I don't know what they do in New York to celebrate. Welcome back, Isadolfo, the champion of the first Invitational. Isadolfo, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I share my screen because we can see the lovely reward I won in the game. It's give me a second.
All right, yeah, let's check out the in-game reward for winning the Invitational. I'm sure it's
very exciting. It's a big reward.
Oh,
there it is.
Well, it's only fitting in New York. You get a lot of confetti.
Yes, a lot of confetti. We'll be avoiding Times Square at all costs in a couple of days. Not that I don't already do that, but it's yes.
The best part is you can use your imagination and fill in that empty square with whatever you want.
Yeah, it could be anything. It could be trophy,
here on the laptop stream, I think I can do a little bit better. So how about this? That's a little bit better. It's got the glow. It's got the name on it. I think I spelled it properly.
Very nice. Yeah, that's now can we just someone Photoshop that onto the thing in the game? That would be
yeah. Copy and paste it into the game. There we go.
Yeah.
Congratulations. One of the other competitors in the chat here is the Dallas Skyline Sluggers, who was one of the 8 team. We're one of the 8 teams in there already. So I got a few questions for you, and then we'll show who had the most faith in you to win this tournament, to win my giveaway that I had a little earlier. So let's talk about, first of all, looking at the team that you're drafted in, and let's get into the mind a little bit of your strategy a little bit, because I think one of the comments I saw on the Spore chat. Wait, before we get into your roster, here was the playoff tree. So Izadafel had to play Hamlet first, really top end manager.
Yeah, well, it's eight tough opponents. I mean, no easy ones. That's for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Spore, who had you down 3-0, and you must have been sweating a little bit.
Yeah,
Down
I
3-0.
got a bit lucky on that one for sure.
And then Aster, out of nowhere, you come up with the sweep on Aster 31.
Yeah,
Just
was not expecting.
quite.
I was looking forward actually. The way that Aster and I lined up, Game 7 would have been DeGrom against Gooden. So I was sort of hoping for that, but this worked.
That would have been, yeah. Izadafo's in New York. We've got EVC in New York. We've got a few people out in that New York area. All right. So let's get back to your roster a little bit. And later on, we're going to look at the treasure trove cards today. And Izadafo will tell me which ones I should play. One comment I saw was what a brilliant move it was taking Willie McCovey with your first overall pick, where a lot of people would take perfects. Explain your reasoning for taking Willie, because that was brilliant.
Yeah, so I thought there were 4 perfects that were pretty far above the rest of the field, and that those 4 should go first. So that was Oscar Charleston, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, and the new Alex Rodriguez. So if I had been in a position to pick one of those, I would have. But picking 6, obviously that unlikely to happen, and in fact, all 4 did go before me. So then I didn't think there was another perfect that made a lot of sense, and I was sort of looking for a place where there was not a lot of scarcity, and it turned out that just sort of low diamond hitting was hard to find. And McCovey is by far the best hitter in low diamond. So yeah, it was really just looking for a place where I could get a lot of excess value on the pick.
If you would have had first overall pick, who would your choice would have been?
I think I would have taken Charleston.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
Aster made the right choice according to you then for first overall.
Yeah, I think so. I probably either him or Aaron. The flexibility is very nice. I mean, Mays is obviously a phenomenal card, and so is A-Rod, but they have less flexibility. I felt like shortstop was a place that it was possible to get good value in the later rounds. So I think Charleston would have been my pick, but Aaron was probably number 2.
So let's talk a little bit more about your preparation for this. What were some of the things you would do leading up to the actual draft that we had on Saturday? What kind of prep work goes into this?
Yeah, there were a couple things I did. I mean, the first I sort of went through at every level, and I said, okay, what are the cards that I think are like far ahead of the rest of the cards at their level, and where are there sort of places where there's a lot of similar cards. So one example is high diamond pitching. High diamond starting pitching, there's like 7 or 8 very, very good cards that all should be taken. I think we took 7 out of the 8 or something. So, but they're all really similar. So there was no reason to, even though I knew I wanted a high diamond starter, like I was always taking one high diamond starter. I didn't really care which of them I got. So I can just wait till the end for them. Whereas some of the McCovey or Sonny Gray, on the other hand, where they're far above their the other options in their tier, then you gotta go get them fast.
And as you're drafting on Saturday, did you have to make any swerves because of the way the other managers were drafting, or maybe a player you had targeted was taken, so you had to change your strategy, or did it kind of stay the same throughout?
A little bit. I wanted that Dan Wilson was. I was trying to get Clyde Milan, the new 75 center fielder, and someone took him like a round or 2 before I was going to. So there were a couple ones like that where I wanted a card and just sort of got taken a few picks before I did. At one point, I was considering, after I didn't get any my big 4 perfects, to take either Greenberg or the baseball reference 3 Corey Seager. But then Lindor kind of fell further than I thought. So once I took Lindor, then I obviously can't take Seager anymore because they both only play shortstop. So then I had to switch to another idea, which was Greenberg.
And who on your roster was a pick that you let slide, and then you ultimately had to take him and thought, wow, I can't believe this guy is still here.
Gray was honestly probably like that. I thought Gray was the best low diamond starter by a decent bit. I thought he should probably have been the third or fourth pitcher off the board. I was surprised he lasted the sixth round. I probably should have taken him actually in the fourth round where I took Seanwell, but somehow he lasted 2 more rounds, so that worked out nicely.
Okay.
Maybe
and
too.
So lefty righty, starting pitching, lefty righty batting, how much in the draft process, how much did that come into play? You trying to focus on one side or the other, or were you looking to get a balanced roster?
In terms of my pitching, I wasn't looking for any specific handedness. I figured everyone would have plans against both. I just wanted the best pitchers. I was with the relievers a little bit, trying to make sure I had a lefty. That's why I took Sabathia, because I had 10 righties prior to that. But on the batting side, I just wanted to have something both ways. So once I took McCovey, that's kind of where Greenberg came from. Instead of, I preferred Greenberg to Bruthers, even though I thought they were pretty similar overall, just because, it gives me a little more balance. So I wouldn't say I was like super focused on it, but I was trying to make sure I had reasonable lineups against both sides.
And I mean, you won the tournament, so everything worked out and all your picks worked out. And there's probably not a lot you would regret in terms of your picks. But looking at who you did take, is there one that, oh man, if I could have redone it, I would have not taken this guy?
I think there were 2 for me that I thought were sort of big mistakes. The first one was Seanwell, which I already talked about. I should have just waited and taken the second of Seanwell and Wes Parker, which I think I could have done in the 6th or 7th round, and taken Gray in the 4th round. It didn't end up changing much, probably because I got the card I would have taken 4th anyway, so didn't make too much difference. The other big mistake, which was really just card pool knowledge on my part, was Piggy Ward. I thought he played 3rd, and he doesn't. And once I realized I should have taken Pelayo Chacon instead, who does play 3rd. And once I realized that Piggy didn't play 3rd, I had to scramble to figure out what I was doing about backing up 3rd base. That Tom Trash was supposed to be Javier Lopez, to get like a big lefty killer reliever. But then I had to figure out a way to back up 3rd that wasn't a 40. So that's where Trash came in.
All right. So you've got your roster. So from the time we finished the draft on Saturday until the time the tournament fired off today, was there any kind of, how much time did you invest in, really zoning in on the roster that you wanted between the draft ending and the time it fired off?
Not a huge amount. I had an idea what I wanted the lineups to be. I had a model for the thing. I updated a little bit with what people took because the environment's going to be slightly different than what I predicted. And there were a couple places I wasn't sure whether it was better to, for example, play Abrams or Geloff, VL. So a couple of little things, if I should platoon Mathis and Wilson, just play Wilson. A couple of small things, but for the most part, I just had the lineups in my head when I was drafting, so it wasn't that difficult to get them in the game.
All right. And I have to, this was an event, first time done again by the community, and it went really well, right from the planning to the drafting to Spore's presentation of the games to this kind of wrap-up interview. Take us through now the actual gameplay and some of the things you were thinking, experiencing, adjusting as the tournament went on. Let's start with round 1 against New Orleans. Did you have to do much micromanaging?
Well, I microed the lineup in every game. I picked the lineup I wanted in every game. I didn't probably need to for the most part, but except for a couple instances. The first round, I wouldn't say there was too much that I did that was different from the microing. I just tried to make sure I got the good VR cards rest against his lefties, and the good VR cards rest against his righties, or good VL cards left against his righties. So that was pretty much it, just making sure I got the best matchups I could. But it wasn't that much in the first round, really.
Okay. And we did see, early in the tournament, we saw, the AI making some strange decisions with pitchers, leaving them in for, 9 innings, 10 innings in some cases. We saw Cal McVeigh, I think, pitch over 9 innings. And we go on to round 2, and Spore just knocked the crap out of you in the first couple games. Like, these were high scoring games. He put up a lot of runs in at least 2 of those first 3 games, and you're down 3-0. What are you doing, if anything, to your roster to try and get something going?
I guess a couple things. I mean, my roster's, I spent a lot of high tier picks on starting pitching. My roster is very much built around these top 4 starters that I was expecting to pitch a lot of innings. They got blown up a bit. It happens. I mean, I wasn't, you can't do much about it when that, you're starting with 7 runs in 2 innings is really, you can't fix it, and there's no strategy or whatever. It just happens sometimes. The main thing is just staying on top of fatigue, making sure that I always had 2 of the 3 of my big hitters in the lineup, which, Greenberg, Carter, and McCovey. And then just sort of making sure no one got super low on fatigue. Again, just trying to get matchups when I could, keeping Matt Williams on the bench if possible, because, obviously he's not great. But no, I mean, I have to win all 4 games. So, there's no sense in just going all out to win game 4, because it doesn't help me if I lose game 5 or game 6. I need to win all 4 games. So it's really just about optimizing to win all 4 games and not just, win the one that you're currently playing.
Yeah. And so you win game 4, and then you win game 5. And I know there was a situation there where, Gooden, you couldn't quite get in because you had used him in the first round and you couldn't get him the 2 starts. And there was the idea of, do I, short shift or whatever the term is with Gooden to try and get him in for a second game? Did that really come into play, or was that not really an option?
I thought about it for a little bit, but I thought it was I didn't think it was a very good idea. So here's the problem with that. Gooden would have been able to short rest the 3rd game. In order to get 2 starts in Series against Spore, he would have had to short rest the 7th game. If he short rests the 7th game, then he can only short rest the 4th game in the finals, which means he can't even short rest the 4th start. So I'm never getting more than 3 starts out of him, even if I short rest him. So if I want to do that, the only way it's beneficial to me is after I lose the first 2, if I win all 4 games, get an off day, and then Gooden can start the first game of the next series on full rest. Otherwise, it really doesn't help me any. It just, I win game 3 instead of winning game 4, but I don't really care. Right? It doesn't matter which one I win. And I want to win the finals. Right? I don't want to beat Spore in particular, win the semifinals. I want to win the tournament.
Right.
I don't care if I lose in the finals or semifinals. So it's really just, okay, I can get good in more total innings over the tournament if I don't short rest him. So I shouldn't short rest him.
Yeah. And, Spore did have a very high-end pitching rotation as well. And so even though you won game 4, you still had to go up against some really good pitchers in game 5, 6, and 7. That must have been a little bit worrisome knowing the rotation that he had.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of the good thing for my matchups, at least. His top 2 hitters are both relatively splitty righties, and I had no lefty starting pitchers. So that was beneficial. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I think this was probably the toughest matchup out of all the teams, because as it turns out, Greenberg just kind of smashed all the low tier guys' faces in. Like, he just hit home runs off of all the silver and gold guys, which I really wasn't expecting to the degree that it happened. So having those, 3 really top tier starters was probably my worst matchup out of any of the teams. But yeah, I mean, I won a couple close games, and yeah.
Was there, while you were watching this, Spore was showing it, on screen, the box scores and things, off screen, how were you watching the games? Were you watching highlights? Did you go right to the box scores? What do you do when you look in on a tournament like this?
I mean, it depends. With only one, you can afford to watch the highlights a little bit. The time I'm mostly doing is PTCS, and then I'm usually in a bunch, and there's no time. You just gotta click and see what the score was and fix your stuff. Like, there's no time to do anything else. With this, I looked at the box score, looked at the game log. I saw that it was, my manager was doing anything really, really dumb that I should fix. It wasn't for the most part. I mean, there were a couple of things, but it just does it sometimes. And then fixed the fatigue. I wasn't really watching highlights. Just trying to make sure I had enough time to do all the micro I needed.
As you were going through, the games and the box scores, is there a specific moment in a game 5, 6, or 7 that maybe you saw as a turning point that fell in your favor that maybe you didn't expect?
I I mean, the game that I was least likely to win that I won was actually the second game of the finals. Game 2 of the finals was Gooden against DeGrom. And I basically benched all my guys. They were all tired. I benched everybody. I had all my low irons and silvers in, and Gooden pitched a shutout, and I got 2 runs off DeGrom with the sort of low guys. And at that point, I thought I was a pretty big favorite because I had a lot of rest then, and after didn't have as much rest. So I felt like at that point I was a pretty big favorite to win.
Yeah, that was, I mean, not just one shock of coming back and reverse sweeping Spore, but then of sweeping Aster, another big shock there, especially since, again, you were taking the rest measures to make sure you were good for game 3 after winning game 1. DeGrom, of course, one of the great pitchers. Against Aster, did you change sliders, strategy, anything like that, knowing you were going up against a different type of manager than the other 2 you had gone up before? Did you adjust your in-game play or not against Aster?
Not really. I was expecting everyone to do sort of similar strategy stuff, kind of all the stuff that we're accustomed to, don't steal, don't bunt, all that sort of, the AI occasionally will just do it anyway, even if you tell it not to, but
yeah.
For the most part, you couldn't run openers in this because it was 1987 and openers aren't allowed in that era. Right. So there wasn't a whole lot of stuff people could do. I mean, they could switch the order of their starters or whatever, but, given that we both played 7 games, that wasn't an option. So yeah, there wasn't a huge amount I think I changed for that. Other than that, just, basically punting the game against DeGrom and then winning it. So
at the same time, it must have been a shock to you to win the final in 4. I mean, do you think that both you guys went game 7 in the semifinals? If let's say Aster had won in 6 games, do you think that 1 day extra of rest for him would have made a difference?
Oh yeah, he'd be a big favorite with the extra day of rest. Yeah, I mean it's a huge deal because it basically, instead of having to play your guys 5 or 6 of the 7 games, you can play all 7, your top guys, and that's just that's a really big advantage.
Yeah.
It's huge the rest days.
So do you have your the game file there with?
Yes, this is just the schedule, but I can go to whatever part of it.
Yeah, just maybe point out a couple of your high end, like couple players of the tournament for you, guys that either did better than you thought or just put up big numbers.
Okay. Well, we obviously got to highlight Greenberg because he was pretty good. This is obviously way above what he should do even against this kind of pitching.
What's that, a 377 average?
327 averaged, 237 OPS plus. This is just a really absurd stat line. He shouldn't do this on average. He had a very good tournament. Gooden was also really good, which is, again, not surprising. Still, also better than what he should do usually, but he's very good. Lindor was really good too, actually. I think this was a card that probably we let slip for too long. I think this is really the best gold shortstop by a decent amount. So I was a little surprised actually he made it down to me at 8, which is sort of when I pivoted off that Seager plan I had talked about earlier. He was really excellent.
How did Piggy Ward do, the guy that you kind of regretted? Because I saw him come up in highlights once in a while.
Yeah, he was fine. He's not that Piggy Ward's a bad card. He doesn't play third base. If he played third base, this would absolutely have been the right pick. I think he's a better player than Pelayo Chacon. It's just that this was a problem, and I'm actually really lucky I noticed it in time. So that was look at his stat line there. He 5 consecutive games with hits, a 4.12 average. He did his job as a reserve on your team. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was good.
In each of the rounds, can you go just let us know who your MVP was on the in-game file for each of the 3 rounds?
Let's see. First round, Greenberg. That's not surprising. Second round was actually Spore's Votto. Not even one of my cards. And then third round finals was again Greenberg. Yeah, Greenberg was pretty easy.
And I think you got Greenberg 16th round or something like that. You took him fairly late, yes. I think. So
yeah, I didn't think I really got a great value on him. I thought it was about where he should go, but he was amazing. He performed amazingly well.
Well, that's, I mean, your first time through this, first time kind of the community has been through this. I'm sure you're, definitely willing to do something like this again. And although there were no in-game prizes, we saw the blank screen, there's no packs or anything like that. Spore did say that the winner would, get to choose some players, and he would, try and create a card for his Tuesday treasure trove. So without giving any specific names, let's keep it a secret. Do you have a few names in mind?
I haven't looked yet. I want to try to find a debut player, a player that hasn't been in Perfect Team before, with kind of a strange season or interesting story or something.
Oh yeah.
We get a lot of the same guys over and over again, and there's so many players in Major League history. I think that's one of the really fun things about the game is you get to learn about these these new guys you've never heard of before.
Yeah, find an inaugural card or a card that we've never seen before and can learn something about. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break here, and then we're going to come back and we're going to let you know who won the contest today. There were 25 entrants. We'll let you know who picked Is It Awful first, Aster second, and then we will look at a few of the treasure trove cards. So back in 2 minutes' time. All right, we're back on this Tuesday Boxing Day evening here with Is It Awful, winner of today's inaugural Invitational, taking the finals in a 4-game sweep over Aster 31. So again, big congratulations. And before we end off our Invitational talk, we have to go and take a look at who actually was the best predictor. And Is It Awful, you got a lot of love in this tournament here. 56% of you, or 56% of the entrants predicted you to win. So,
well, I'll say that the modeling I did definitely had Charles, Aster, and myself as the 3 best teams. So it appears that people agreed generally. I mean, that was what, almost 90% of the responses were one of those 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing that. I mean, we did show you rosters a few times, and there are a lot of people that know rosters pretty well. So Yeah, just 56%. And then second place, the majority of second place votes went to Aster. So funny how that works, that the two finalists, and we
People
didn't
did
even
got it
know the
right.
brackets. We had no idea who was playing who. And
Yeah.
you guys emerged as number 1 and 2. So let's go and find out who our winner is here. Let's go and create. We got a filter on already. So who will win round 1, or who will win the tournament? It was Izadaffel. Who will finish second? Aster. So that gets us down to 6. And finishing third, based on my criteria, was the loser of the semis to you. So that would be Sporer. And there is our winner. So Statmonger predicted you, Aster, Spore 1, 2, and 3, the only entrant to have all 3. And then they kind of went off the rails and they said kidneys.
Well, you can forgive them. 3 out of 4 is not too bad. Did anyone get all 4? Did anyone get put Charles third and Spore fourth?
Well, based on my criteria, Charles would have been. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. Is it awful? Aster, Warbot, and Sporer as the final 4.
Very nice.
So there was one person, and Tiger Cub. I did send Tiger Cub 5 packs for getting all 4 of them. But based on the rules we had, Statmonger won the contest. So Statmonger won 10 packs. So that was fun. And I think on stream I said too, I said, these are the 4 teams I liked. And it happened to be you, Aster, Warbot. And I said, watch out for Spore. He's an underdog. Watch out for him.
His
finished.
Team was good.
Yeah, he finished. His team was good. So any closing comments about the tournament, the structure? Now that you've gone through it, what would you like to do different, if anything? Give us a wrap-up comment.
I mean, people were suggesting, try it with different card pools, gold and diamond, silver and below, iron and bronze, whatever. I mean, I think it'd be fun to just do this with a lot of different, card pools, slot systems, whatever. I mean, it's obviously takes a while with 8 players, and we got a lot of help from the devs to create the tournament, which was really, really amazing. We probably, we couldn't have really done that without them. So big thanks on that for sure. But yeah, I mean, I'm open to really whatever formats people propose. Like, it was very interesting to draft. Yeah.
Right. And as I said on Sporer's stream, I don't think I'd want to go more than 8 teams because it took 3 hours to draft with 8 teams. Imagine if there were 16 teams, it would take pretty much most of the day, unless there was another way of doing it that could speed up the process. But, 8 to 16, I think, is a pretty good number.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Tuesday Treasure Trove. Let's talk about some of the cards. I know there's some cards here that you like, and some cards that I think are going to jump into being playable in certain certain situations. John Henry Johnson, I like this card for low iron, especially with that P BABIP. You got to love the P BABIP. What do you think about John Henry?
I have him as sort of a fringy low iron starter. He's a lefty, so that's always nice because, low iron does some lefties, but you can't make a full rotation with 5 of them. So this gets you 1 closer. You still probably only have 4. But yeah, I mean, it's a decent card. Looks playable.
Playable in low iron, but not full iron?
No.
Okay.
Not full iron for sure.
Next up,
either. Yeah.
This is a card I really liked. I thought, the makeup of the card was very similar to that 66 Dave Steve that we got, but probably maybe a little bit better because of the control. A little bit less stuff, though. Where do you have this card in the mix?
Yeah, I think this is actually a substantially more useful card than Steve for a few reasons. The first is it's just slightly better. I mean, it's not a lot better, but it's a little bit better. The other 2 reasons are, I think, much more important. The first is that he has reverse splits, which are usually good. And the second thing is that he has like 40 extra points of stamina, which is not, because of the range that stamina in, is not going to be a huge difference. But in a cap, if you have like irons on your bullpen and you're getting an extra, inning a start out of this, it will actually make a difference. In open, it doesn't really matter, but in caps, it does.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I saw it. I said, I like this card. It remind me of that Dave Stieb, but it's better than that Dave Stieb card in a few areas. I think it might have a little lower pitcher BABIP, but the stamina and the control, I think, more than make up for that. So you would say this is playable in full bronze?
Yeah, I got basically 7 starters playable in full bronze right now. This is one of them. It's not a critical card, but it's a good card.
All right, Andy Messersmith, and you're a Mets fan, right?
No, I'm not really an anything fan.
Oh, you don't have a specific team. Okay,
not so much at this point. No.
All right. Next, the silver Alex Wood. Again, I don't play silver. When I look at the ratings, it looks like a very well balanced card, low stamina, so probably a bullpen guy. What do you think?
I don't think he's really a bullpen guy. The relievers in silver are pretty decent, but I do have him as sort of a fringy starter, somewhat similar to where the Addy Joss from last week was. The big difference is that he's left-handed, so the only really lefty starter at the moment in silver was Steve Carlton. A couple people were playing Jimmy Key because they just were desperate for a lefty, even though he was a bit further behind. This is a much more reasonable lefty to play in full silver than Jimmy Key. So now you can play 2 if you want to.
So who would you have as the top lefty in silver right now?
Carlton.
Steve Carlton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Carlton and Wells. Carlton and Wells are by far the 2 best starters in silver.
And a circle change. You don't see that circle change in a lot of pitchers.
No.
Now, we didn't have many gold, and we usually don't on Tuesday's Treasure Trove, but we did get this Johnny Wright, starting pitcher, control. Again, well balanced. I don't know where he fits. Does he work in his way into the gold meta?
I think he's playable. I mean, gold, I think there's really a jumble of maybe even 10 plus starters that are all extremely similar, including Wright and Trevor Rogers, also from today. There's a huge flexibility in what you want to do in gold, actually really everywhere pretty much. There's maybe only 3 or 4 cards that are like must play in gold, which is great. The meta is really healthy in gold at the moment.
And I know, Mr. Audit, you play a lot of gold if you're still around. Is this a card that you would definitely want to play, or are you pretty comfortable with the pitchers that you currently are using in gold? Or have you kind of taken a break from the gold tournaments and gone on to other tournaments? Because I know for a while there, Mr. Audit was always premier gold player. So this is one of your, I think you said 10. There's a group of 10.
I don't know how many it is. It's a whole bunch. There's lefties, there's righties, there's even 2 silvers in there. I mean, Carlton and Wells both, I think, play up pretty decently.
Oh, all right.
So there's a huge choice, yeah.
Okay, and one thing I love about the Tuesday Treasure Trove, and we talked off screen about, it's nice to have some notoriety, a show for these lower level cards rather than just a dump, right? I think you agreed with that as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's nice to see more Negro League stars, more future legends that they put in. Like, it's just not the generic background, but it's from these other sets that we've had previously. It's kind of cool to see that.
Yeah, I am a bit curious what these Negro League cards are gonna be in as far as missions go, because usually the Negro League cards are sort of in the dedicated Negro Leagues missions. At least that's been the way it's in this cycle and other cycles. So I'm curious if these will end up in a mission or not at some point.
All right, let's go on to a few of the hitters that you kind of singled out. And the first one, Iron Reggie Willits. Got some blue for an Iron card. That can never be a bad thing.
No, I mean, I know. As I mentioned with John Henry Johnson, low Iron has left-handed starting pitching, a decent amount of it actually, and this will crush them. I mean, this is an extremely strong hitter versus lefties for low Iron. It's a good hitter against lefties for full Iron too. It's just full Iron, there aren't any lefties anymore, so it gets a bit more difficult to run in there. But in low Iron, there certainly should be on the roster, whether it's in a corner or at DH even, is perfectly reasonable.
All right, Reggie Willits. Next up, we have another Iron, a high Iron, Mike Pagliarulo.
Yeah, I think this is sort of just a slightly better version of the Jake Lamb we got maybe a month ago now.
Oh,
It's a similar hitter, plays a bit better defense, and it actually has batting ratings against lefties that aren't 0, which is nice. So yeah, I think this either just replaces Lamb or moves Lamb to DH or first base on your rosters. It's quite a good card, I think.
and of course, we know you're not too worried about the defense here for third base.
No, I mean, I'll take more of it over less of it if everything else is the same, but I'm certainly not going to pay for it.
Yeah, yeah. One more iron hitter here. Brent Maine, catcher from the San Francisco Giants, 94 ability. He's no Jeff Mathis, is it, awful?
I actually have this better than Jeff Mathis versus righties as a catcher.
Because his bat is much better?
His bat is much, much better. So I would just platoon him and Mathis in full iron at the moment. Carlton Fisk is also quite good. You can even play him as a versus left DH and have him as a back catcher or something. But yeah, I think Maine is quite a strong card too.
And you could play him both ways too, couldn't you?
You could, but there's not really much reason to because you'll always need 2 catchers on your roster anyway. And Mathis is better versus lefties, and he's the other one. So I don't think you'll ever really do that. But yeah, theoretically in a cap or something, you could think about it.
We've always kind of been waiting for that one real good platoon with Jeff Mathis, and a few have kind of come along, but there's never been that one where we could say, okay, here's the guy. And so you're kind of saying that for now, here's the guy.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, previously Carlton Fisk was my number 2, and he was just sort of a backup, and sometimes he'd DH. But yeah, I think this is the Mathis platoon we've been waiting for a while.
Yeah. Let's move on to the bronze hitters. And of course, for the New York Mets fans out there, we've got Lee Mazzilli, one of the great Mets. What do you like about this card, and why does he maybe play in bronze?
Yeah, I think this is my favorite, like design-wise, I think this is my favorite card of the set. So I have him as the best 2-way first baseman in bronze. But he's behind JSO VR and a couple other really splitty guys VL. So if you're platooning, you're not playing him. There's Bob Horner, who's slightly worse than him, but also plays third. The center actually is more useful than I thought it would be. I was just before I started the stream, I was rebuilding my bronze roster, and I did manage to fit this in. Playing first VR, and JSO's playing right field, and he's backing up center. It's a bit odd, but it's a really interesting card in terms of how you might put it on your roster, how you could use the center field. Which side of the platoon is getting rid of? Can you still fit Horner? There's a lot of interesting stuff going on here, I think.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, because usually we see some center fielders who can play first base, but this is the opposite. First base primarily who can play center field.
Yeah. It's sort of a funny quirk, actually. This is like the only season of his career he didn't play left field. So any other season, he would have been a left fielder forever, but this exact season he can't play it. So that's sort of funny.
The only thing that would worry me as a bronze player, right now in bronze, I think I've got JSO and Bagwell platooning, and Bagwell's like really good against the lefties.
Yes.
So do you platoon Mazzilli and Bagwell now and put JSO as a DH?
Well, then if you put JSO as a DH, you have to figure out what to do with Ethier, which is sort of how I landed on this JSO in right field idea. But I don't know how good it is because I had to cut Terminal Sledge to make it work. So yeah, I think there's options in how to build with this. Horner, I think, is an important card for the backup third base, because otherwise you sort of stretch Nico Goodrum really thin, having to back up like second, third, and short.
So you don't have Horner as a starter then?
I'm starting Horner at first base VL.
Oh, okay.
He's slightly worse than Dale Murphy, but I'm willing to take a slightly worse VL to get a real VR bat and the third base.
So Bagwell's out of your meta for now.
Yes, Bagwell is out of my meta. I think, as Mr. Audit says, if you want Bagwell, Dale Murphy is just basically does Bagwell's job better. Right.
How about, because Ethier scares me a little bit in the lineup defensively. There's that, who is it, Benedettini?
Benintendi, yeah.
An attendee? Is he a decent option in bronze?
Yeah, I think he should be on most rosters. He's the most two-wayable of all the VR outfielders, and it's very hard to platoon all three of those spots. It really doesn't work. So you have to figure out which one, if you want to play Grissom two ways, if you want to play some other, the Larry Rosenthal, who I don't really love, but people play him. Benintendi, you can play two ways. So you have to find one of the three to play two ways, and I think that's the easiest one.
Don't massacre your Red Sox player names. Okay, we'll go by first name.
He's not a Red Sox player anymore. He's a Yankees player now. So
Brock
he's
Holt.
not a Yankees player. He's a White Sox player. I think that's Verdugo.
How did I do on that one, Mr. Audit? Brock Holt. Now, this is a card you said that you wanted me to bring up, not necessarily because he was, meta and must play, but an interesting card in other ways.
Yes. So, we've seen these flexible cards in gold, like Harry Ford and Tony Phillips. And, we've just kind of said that these are really good cards to have on your roster because they give you all this ability to build around them. The problem is that Holt isn't actually the best anywhere. He's behind Mondesi at second. He's behind Goodrum at second. He's behind other, better hitters at third. He's behind Ozzie Smith and Adam Everett at shortstop. He's not a great outfielder. So these sorts of just utility players, if he's on your roster, just a utility player, it's actually often ends up being very difficult to build enough platoons in a successful depth chart. The way the game punishes fatigue, it's very hard to run a guy that's like just a utility player. So he has to be the best somewhere, and he just kind of isn't. And I think Goodrum is enough flexibility. You don't need this. So it's not a terrible card, but I don't think it makes the best bronze roster, even though it's kind of decent and has all this nice flexibility. It's just a little bit, there's not quite enough there.
You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of the Dink Motho card, very flexible, that you'd put on your roster maybe up until like November, and then he kind of started to disappear. Similar kind of situation.
I mean, I think the thing with Dink was when Dink was released, he was the best at a bunch of positions. He was the best corner outfielder, he was the best second baseman, he was the best third baseman. So then it was not so difficult to fit him on your roster because you wanted him anyway, and the flexibility was just a bonus. But this you're really playing only for the flexibility, I think, and that makes it somewhat difficult.
Too bad, Brock Holt. You had so much potential to make rosters because you play so many positions. Silver, Jim Brown. What would you like to say about him?
Well, it's a good thing he's a catcher because the other positions are less good. But I know I have this as one of the two best catchers, low silver, this and the Rick Cerrone from, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're pretty similar. You want both, but as long as you have one, it's probably fine.
Wow, Rick Cerrone and Jim Brown on the silver. Now it's full silver or just
low silver? Low silver. I'm sorry. There is also Benji Molina, who obviously just smashes lefties, but I don't think there are quite enough lefties in low silver for him to work at the moment.
All right. And our last card, the second gold card of today, Tom Brunansky from your Minnesota Twins. No, not your Minnesota Twins, but the Minnesota Twins. Interesting, he's half trained in left field, fully trained in center and right field. Again, is he in a mix of players for gold now? Yeah,
he's definitely in the mix. I think probably I haven't built gold with this. I don't own it yet. I think this does make it probably. It sort of has to be a center fielder because really you're getting a lot of value from that 103 range. And there's cards like TJ Friedel and Chas McCormick, and it was already tough to fit them both, even though they're really good because it's awkward. And you have cards like Shin-Soo Choo and Goose Curry and Kyle Schwarber that are super strong hitters one way. So it's a little bit difficult to fit everything, but I think Brunansky probably does make a sort of meta gold roster.
Okay, and I think you answered the question earlier. Your most intriguing favorite, card of the set, was that Mazzilli, or is there another one?
I definitely go for Mazzilli, which I might not have thought. It was actually mostly because I just tried to build with him an hour ago or whatever, and it was actually very tricky to figure out what to do with him. Like he's definitely good, but it was not easy for me to figure out how to sort of massage the roster around to get him in, which was interesting.
All right. Well, before I let you go, Isadolfo, just a couple quick snappers for you. A couple, 1 minute at the most kind of answers in terms of the game itself. Again, you know this game well. When we're doing the draft, someone drafts a player and we're going like, what's his rating? And you're like 73, 84. Like, you know these cards really well. So in your opinion, in terms of the meta, or in terms of something lacking, a certain type of pitcher, a certain type of hitter, a certain position at any level, where are we kind of short right now in the game?
That's an interesting question. I think diamond and gold are really, really good metas at the moment. Maybe the thing I'd point to, which is, I don't know if it's exactly an answer, but we talk about like the league meta and open tournaments meta, and we think, okay, they're kind of the same, right? You play the big hundreds, but actually they are diverging very quickly. In open tournaments, the often environment is just through the roof. I mean, it's like 4% home run rate, 335 BABIP. It's ridiculous. And as a result, wildly different cards play in open tournaments than league, which I think is something to look at, because I have a feeling that it can be very difficult to understand unless you spend a lot of time modeling those exact formats. Why some players are doing well in league and then just get crushed in tournaments, or vice versa.
But there's nothing that stands out saying, well, we really need a meta second baseman in gold because it's been so long since we've had one. You can't think of a specific position.
I think left-handed pitching in full iron, that's one where we're definitely short. We've talked about that a few times. Left-handed pitching is always hard to find because there's just fewer left-handed pitchers in Major League history than right-handed pitchers. But I think that's one. Maybe right field and iron too. That Clemente has kind of been, at least according to my model, the best right fielder since he was released, which was many months ago now. That may be a position to look at. But no, I mean, I think for the most part we have pretty healthy metas right now.
Okay, good. Second question is, do you think the power creep in the last month and a half has sped up, slowed down, or kind of stayed the same?
Oh, this has to be a 1 minute answer.
Yes, 1 minute is all you get. Has the rate leveled off? Has it, what are we looking at in terms of power creep in the last month?
It's definitely, I don't know how to say this. It's higher than it was earlier in the cycle, but I think it has to be because spotlight packs and choice packs mean that it is impossible to not have very aggressive power creep. So I think the culprit for the power creep is not so much the content being released, but that the economy doesn't really function all that well. And it makes it so that it's more or less required to print new really good cards all the time. Otherwise, people will just have nothing to do.
Right. Yeah. No, I see your point. And, the economy, the card shop, again, that's a topic for a whole different conversation, because, it's tougher now to get some of these packable cards than it is to get tourney cards or to get mission cards sometimes. Yes. Because people aren't ripping the standard packs like they used to.
Yeah. I mean, I actually checked on the Yule log thing the other day because I was sort of curious. This silver dead ball pop-up, Addy Joss was the best pitcher in the new 77 by a lot. There had been 7 pulled in the tournament fired. 7.
When did he come out?
A week before that. Or
7.
And remember we said there'd be 400 Tyler Wells in a week. Yeah. Wow. As soon as the cards go in spotlights, there are a million of them. If they don't go in spotlights, they don't exist. It's not great. And I think there needs to be something done about it. Yeah.
All right. Second last question. What are we lacking? What is OOTP lacking in terms of a specific type of tournament that you think is needed for the community, for the cards that we have? Is there a tournament that's lacking?
Well, I guess there'd be sort of 2 things, which sort of come to mind right away. The first is that we have every level. So low iron, high iron, except low bronze. We have no low bronze. We should have a low bronze. It will give some handful of additional cards some playability. So why not? The second thing is, this is more of a thing with how the AI, like the auto import rosters works. There's a bronze open modern, a bronze open 1934, and I think a bronze open modern in a ballpark. But it imports the same roster for all three, which is extraordinarily annoying, because if you play your 1934 roster in modern, you will lose. And if you play your modern roster in 1934, you will lose. So I think as long as that exists, it's important to create tournament formats that don't have this overlap. Because it really makes it impossible if you're sitting in front of your computer all day, like importing the correct roster into every tournament you enter. Obviously, it'd be great to fix the roster import, but if that is a lot more difficult, then we should just make it so that, we have a bigger variety, make one like, a cap or some card pool restriction or error restriction or something else, so that it doesn't import the same roster and you have to, run your 934 thing in modern and just get smashed.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I play bronze, and I play those three bronze, the 1934 and the modern, and yeah, it took me a while to figure out that it's not importing the right roster. So I'd go into my modern and see I had three starting pitchers, because it's using my
right, and you have no hope. You'll lose in the first round to pitching fatigue. Like, there's just you have no chance to win.
Yeah, I agree. It's frustrating. All right, last question I have for you. I just love, picking your brain about different ideas for this game. Is not so much the process of cards and being released and what we talked about earlier, but in terms of the design of the card shop, is there an improvement you would make? Because it's changed from a couple years ago. I don't know if you played the game a couple years ago when we had the auction house compared to the one we have now. Is there a design for the card shop that you think is needed?
Well, this is another one that's going to be very hard to make a short answer. But I guess in terms of the card shop itself, I think the biggest thing is that L10 is in many cases a very problematic number. And the reason is basically because it can get stale very, very easily. And the cards where it gets stale are actually usually the ones that you're most interested in buying. So it's things like, big mission rewards that rarely get sold, or limited or rare cards, where the L10 will sort of not make sense because there's only been 3 sales, or, the last sale was a month ago or something like that. And then we see people, not valuing cards properly, or all kinds of other things. So I think there has to be something, but I would definitely have a more, let's say, comprehensive display of, where maybe, what the price of the last 10 sales have been, when the sales were, if people have been, entering and canceling lots of orders, things like that, just to give sort of more visibility into what's actually happening. And the other one, of course, which is mentioned in tons and tons of times, is to get rid of choice packs and implement this tournament currency shop, which, I think probably 15 or 20 people have had the same independent idea about, because choice packs have, as we said, they put the cards in the game so quickly now.
Yeah, we're already seeing tournament batch 5 prices plummet for a lot of those cards, because there's so many that are put out there. And like Mr. Audit says, the toughest part of the Oscar Charleston was getting those treasure trove cards, because again, they weren't being opened up in packs and standard packs. So I lied. One more question. You're only allowed to play one type of tournament from here till the end of the cycle. Which one do you choose, and why?
Weeklies, for sure. Weeklies. They have just the most variability. I like playing all the different levels, and that gives me every level and all kinds of different cards I get to use, which is sort of what I like about the game. So,
all right,
definitely that would be the choice for me.
Well, is it awful? Thanks for taking the time. I know it's been a whirlwind day for you. You've been on the press tour, the junket. You've been getting calls from CNN and all over the place.
Oh yeah, this day I can't. The phone's ringing off the hook. It's just...
ESPN. You're getting endorsement deals. It just must be a busy day. And Congratulations again on taking the inaugural tournament.
Thank you.
And yeah, hopefully we'll have a few more of these along the way. And thank you,
I
Mr.
really hope so,
Audit
yeah.
and Lud for watching along and tuning into the show tonight. Any closing comments about the tournament, about what you're looking forward to in the next month in the game?
Let's do it again. I had a lot of fun with drafting it, playing it. Get new people in, and let's run another one. I'm ready to go.
All right. And I think another prize should be they should let you choose the environment for the next invitational. That should be another little prize.
That could be dangerous. I may choose something very bizarre.
All right. Thank you, Zadolfo. Have a wonderful evening. And
thank you.
Yeah, all the best in your future endeavors with this game.
Thanks.
All right, gang, that is it for me. Again, I wanted to come on and interview Izadafo while it's still fresh. We've gone the full gamut. We've gone the draft. We've gone the actual in-game performance. And now we have the interview with the winner. It's been fun. I've loved being part of this whole process, this invitational. And hopefully I can get in one at some point and you guys can get in one at some point. Hopefully it's not a one and done kind of thing. So thanks for listening in and watching. And we'll raid over to PBE Sim in case you still need some drops for those of you that are listening. Tomorrow, I believe EVC should be on at noon. Dr. Dynastic, I believe, is on after that. And who knows? Who knows what else is on? I'm back with the pre-hype show at 11 a.m. Eastern on Thursday. And then Twipped, of course, we got the new Twipped content. If you haven't heard, baseball reference missions. So it doesn't sound like we're going to get any packables on Thursday. It sounds like it's just going to be the mission cards that they're going to show off. And then, of course, the Hawk Report after that. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you next episode.